to Lunchtime Vinyasa. So we're going to do a little flow. We'll start with a seated position that's comfy for you. So I'm sitting cross-legged. You could also sit like kneeling down and then sit down between your feet if that's a more comfortable position. If you want to get all fancy and be all lotusy, you can do that too. And then just kind of, get yourself a little rocked into place. Imagine that you kind of sink down into the hot tub, the yoga hot tub. Let your shoulders relax. And let your face kind of smooth out. And let go of some of the concentration and other things you've been up to today. And then tune into your breath. So some things that I just noticed the overall quality of the breath. Like when my inhale comes in, does it go in all the way so that my belly moves, or does its initial inclination to stay a little more shallow? Does it feel like my left side or my right side breathes a little deeper? And then can I kind of coax my exhale into slightly longer, slightly more relaxed? Sometimes I'll kind of play with the breath, like if I breathe way down deep in the belly, let everything get really soft. Is the quality of that inhale different than if I kind of restrict the navel and make the breath go into my ribs? And for me, it is not just physically, but there's kind of a difference in the way the breath sort of leaves me mentally. Letting that breath go really deep, letting the diaphragm really expand, feels more grounding and centering to me. Breathing higher up in my chest gives me a feeling of sort of lightness or almost levitation, really. And so maybe if I'm feeling sluggish, I might push the breath a little higher, right? Let the upper part of the breath kind of bring me up a notch. If I'm feeling kind of space case and not very grounded, then really letting that breath drop down and touching the bottom of the pelvic floor, for me anyway, is a way for the breath to become kind of a almost like an asana, right? So a way of kind of adjusting my attitude a little bit, or adjusting my presence. So let's do one more, whichever kind of breath is right for you today. And then drop your chin. We're gonna let our head just kind of settle for a moment. Just bring the shoulder blades a little down the back. Not overly strong on that. Just let them fall down your back. And then roll your head back and forth a couple times. Oh, so we'll try to get a little looser in the neck, in case you've been staring at a screen since this morning. You've gone around, like one more time, so that you're even on both sides. Pause at the center, and we're going to take the shoulder blades and kind of bring them up towards the ears and then pull them back. I'm leaving my chin forward for right now. I'm going to do 3 like this, up and back with the shoulders. And already that's feeling a little looser, so then I'm going to float my head up and do it again, up and back with the shoulders, like up. And then back towards each other, and up and forward and back towards each other. Oh, all right, so let's do a little bit of wrist work. So we're just going to take the wrist and kind of circle them. Get them a little warmer, make it friendlier, go the other direction. spread your fingers out really big. And I'm trying to get these last 3 fingers a little wider apart. My thumb gets enough action, but those little fingers kind of help pull everything a little bit more into a nice stretch without overdoing the index finger and thumb. Bring them in, stretch them out one more time. Oh, and we're just gonna give the fingers a little like piano action. All right. Lace your fingers together. Let's do little waves with the wrists. And then go the other direction. Don't think about it too much. We're going to stretch the hand back a little. And then stretch it forward a little. Stretch the hand back a little. Stretch it forward a little. Let's do that one more time on each side. Stretch it back a little. Stretch it forward a little. Stretch it back a little. Stretch it forward a little. All right. So now hopefully we're ready for some hands and knees or downward dog eventually. And the wrists are a little warmer and a little nicer if they've been holding onto a keyboard or a mouse. That might be nice to get them moving. All right, so let's do our spine. Now, I'm going to start with these cat shapes that go up and down. Something popped in my back. That felt good. And just go up and down. Looking for some space in the upper back and the lower back along the way here. Now, once you're even on both sides, you know, you've done both movements, whatever you're up to, about even, come to neutral so that it doesn't feel like you're in either of those two shapes, but right down the center, you can hug the sides of your waist in a little bit, and then make sure your head and neck are level. So it feels like your ears are kind of hanging out about the same level as your shoulders. They might not be, but it's just about feeling it. So we're going to take the head and the tailbone over to the left and stretch the right rib cage out, and then come back to the center, head and tailbone to the right, stretch the left ribs out. So we're just going back and forth, trying to kind of maintain that relatively level head. I have a tendency to try to twist my chin up when I do this. So I'm trying to keep my chin level, my head level, work against that little tendency to want to turn my head. So I can get the side bend all the way down the whole length of the spine, as far as it's willing to go. All right, so when you're even on both sides, come back to the center. We're going to take a wide knee child's pose, just kind of take yourself back, and then you're going to take one arm, doesn't matter which one, right or left, and take it underneath the opposite arm. Now, I like to use this arm to kind of press into the floor and deepen my upper back twist. You may want to wrap that arm behind your back and tuck it in, or just let it relax down beside you. That's also legal. So you decide how that should go. And then I play with the hips. So sometimes it feels nicer to make this left side a little longer. Sometimes it feels nicer to make the right side a little longer. Sometimes the movement between those two is the thing. I'm kind of pushing my shoulder into the floor and backing my hips up a little, leaning into that stretch for the last breath. And then we're going to come on out of there. I like to give myself a second to shake that arm up or go back to child's pose. Just kind of feel where it landed me. So my whole right arm feels a little bit, it feels a little lighter, a little fluffier. There's a slight kind of pleasant warmth to it, all the way up to the middle of my back. I don't know if that's true for you, but see what is true. And then we're going to do the opposite arm when you're ready. And again, you can do any of those little variations. Choose variations that are appropriate for you. Okay, so I'm going to lean into that shoulder. One more big deep breath, and you can do whatever is right for you. And then I'm going to come back to the center. Again, give that arm a little rinse, and just notice how it landed me. Frankly, that's feeling pretty good, yogis. So my upper body feels nice and warm. Let's get the lower body a little warmer. What do you guys say? So we'll do that with some downward dog. And I'm gonna have to go from the slippery side of my mat to my grippy side of my mat. So I'm gonna flip my mat upside down while you guys join me in downward dog eventually. Now, downward dog can be a tricky pose. And if this version of downward dog is not right for you, what you can do is either stay with the all fours position, or if you've got to have like a piece of furniture handy, or a couch or something, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but you can put your hands on the edge and back your down dog up like that, so that it doesn't have to be weight bearing on your arms. Part of what downward dog's beauty is that it's weight bearing, but it's not right for everybody. So if it's not right for you, for a variety of reasons, you can kind of switch it up a little bit. You can also put your hands on a wall if a wall space would be better. All right, so I'm working into my legs. Oh, getting my calf muscles, hamstrings, and all those goodies. And then when you're ready, you guys, we're just gonna walk this thing together, or you can hop if you're feeling kind of bouncy. When you get your hands and feet together, come up halfway so it feels like your back levels out. And then fold forward. I've got my knees a little soft, and then I'm gonna see if I can straighten them out a little more and get a little more into my hamstrings. Come up halfway. Give yourself that kind of feeling of a flattened back. And then exhale and whoo, feel yourself get into whatever's going on in the backs of your own legs. And then we're gonna come all the way up to standing. Give it a giant stretch. Oh. Now, I like to give everything a little bit of a shake. All right, yogis, once you've shaken yourself out, corrected any wardrobe malfunctions that are coming up for you right now, we're gonna come to the top of our mats. If you don't have a mat, just stand somewhere. Like, it'll work out. Just find your place. And then we're gonna let ourselves kind of feel through the feet. So I'm gonna spread my toes out a little bit wider and kind of balance up onto my tiptoes and come down. If I do that with my eyes closed, it's a little harder. So that's kind of fun. Up onto the tiptoes and come down and up onto the tiptoes. And then once you come down, spread your toes out, kind of lean back into your heels, spread your toes out, put them back down. And almost like you're trying to come into this sense of having the hobbit feet, like super wide in the toes and nice and steady. See if you can feel the arch that lives between your big toe and your pinky, or your big toe and your pinky toe, along with the other arches in your feet, without gripping too much with your toes. Good, so let the knees have a little bit of freedom, the hips a little bit of freedom, so we're not locking those joints out. It's not the military. And then we're just gonna connect this front rib section to our pelvic rim there on the front. And then let ourselves get a little taller through the back of the neck. And for me, those are the motions, right? Everything else just is allowed to relax into place. If you prefer to have this kind of more turned out arm, okay. I've got tight traps and that jacks me up. It's not right for me. But now that you're standing in your power, stand there for a breath or two, or we're gonna do 3, but just feel how this pose is not nothing, right? There's a lot of activity happening in this pose, even the parts that you relax. And so no matter how you stand on the planet, you're standing with some energy, some power. Take a nice big breath. We're gonna reach up toward the ceiling. If you can sweep your arms, that's fine. And then as you exhale, we'll fold forward. Now, we're gonna come up halfway, and in this halfway moment right there, we're gonna sink the hips so that it's like we're coming into a chair. Now you can stay right there, flat backed into your chair, or you can try to bring your back up so it's a little bit more like a cobra, a little more of an extension in the spine. Taking a nice big breath. Exhale, fold forward. We're gonna step back with the right foot so that we wind up in a lunge with the left foot forward. Now, we're gonna play with this lunge a little bit. So I'm gonna play with both the heel part and with the front part. So for me, it's better if I have a little elevation. So I'm gonna use a couple of blocks. You might have long enough arms that's super easy for you to touch the floor, all right? So right now I'm in a lunge, and I'm gonna lift my breastbone forward, press back through my heel, okay? Now, lift the hips up, stretch out the front leg as straight as it'll go, see if you can fold over it. Press down through your heel as you're bending your knee to stretch a little more through the calf. Bring the breastbone forward. Okay. Hips go up, breastbone goes down, heel goes back as you bend the front knee. Nice. Now we're going to turn this into one more time and then a balance pose. So we're going to, breastbone goes up, hips go up, breastbone folds over, bend the knee. Instead of pressing back through the heel, now we're going to try to lift ourselves up. And this takes us into a standing splits. Now, you can keep your left leg as bent as you like. You can stay elevated up on the block, so it's a little more like a warrior three. With standing splits, basically it's bending over with one leg in the air. So that's what we're going for. You can put your hands down lower. You can grab your ankle and take your hands off the floor and try to test that out. One more big breath. I don't know if my hamstrings are ready for this, but it feels pretty good. All right, so we're gonna step all the way back to downward dog. Oh, providing I can get off of the sticky surface. And then we're gonna come forward into a plank. Now you can modify your plank by putting your knees down. Hug those elbows in, lower down, and go all the way or just to a halfway point. Come into cobra or an upward dog if that's your jam. And then taking it back through the plank and into down dog. Take that right leg up, yogis. Exhale, step that foot forward. Now, however far it went, just look up. And then bring your left foot up to meet it. And come up halfway. Exhale, fold. Oh, that fold feels pretty good. Come all the way up to standing. Give yourself a big stretch. Oh. Oh. A little jiggle. All right. Then we're going to come back to the top of the mat if we're not already there. And we're going to pause in that mountain pose. And again, feeling mountain pose not just as a pose, but maybe as a metaphor too. Standing up for what's right, whatever that is in your world, right? Taking a nice big breath, reaching the arms up. Exhale and fold forward. Inhaling, come up halfway. Now again, we're going to pause right there. Sink the hips into that chair shape. And maybe I stay with the flatter back. Maybe I pick myself up. Maybe even take the arms out straight. And taking one more big breath. And then exhale, we're going to fold. We're going to step back with the left foot so that we wind up in a right lunge. Okay, so again, find the lunge so that it feels like you get a nice stretch. It's at the right amount of space for your body mechanics, okay? So again, breastbone is forward, heel is back. That's the beginning of my lunge. Then I'm gonna lift my hips, and as I fold forward, bringing my breastbone forward, I'm letting my front leg straighten out. Then as I bend my front knee back to the lunge, I'm pushing back through my heel. So I get that full range of motion through my calf muscle. Breastbone up. There's my starting point. Hips go up. Breastbone folds now as the leg goes straighter. I'm going to press back through my heel, bend the knee. Ooh. Breastbone comes up one more time through this little process. Hips go high. Fold over that front leg. Okay, my heel is up right now. Now I'm pressing my heel back as I'm starting to bend the knee. Gets a little spicier. And then we're going to reach forward and see if we can pop ourselves up into our standing splits balance. Again, bend your right knee as much as you need to take the hamstrings at the appropriate level of stretch, or to an appropriate level of stretch. And sometimes I like to just pause here and just see if I can get this top leg a little higher, and that's my jam for today. Whee. Take one more big breath. All right, so we're going to step this guy all the way back to down dog eventually. And then feeling out that dog. Oh, we get to like the dogs where we've done some other stuff, can you feel the difference in your body, just the way everything feels? Oh, it's nice. All right, so we're coming forward again. You can maintain that full plank. You can maintain the modified plank, just hug that navel in. And then we're gonna lower ourselves down. Oh. We're gonna come into a cobra or an upward dog, whichever one is your jam. Come back to plank, and then back to down dog. I'm gonna take that left leg up, give it a big long stretch. Oh. Step it forward, wherever it lands, just pause right there. And then bring your right foot up to meet your left one. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. Come all the way to standing. And then pause in your mountain pose, right? So walk up to the top of your mat if you're not already there. All right, so we're in mountain pose. We're gonna come back to this chair. We're gonna come into it in a higher chair way. Not to confuse that with anything that small infants sit in to eat. All right, so we're gonna take the arms up, and I'm gonna go ahead, I'm doing this little mudra, which is fingers together, right? Thumbs crossed, all the other index fingers are up, all the other fingers are laced together. So I like to make fun of this a little bit, or be light with it and call it the Charlie's Angels mudra. Can you see me? But in any case, what it is ultimately about is about letting yourself kind of project project forward into the world all of the positive aspects of who you are, and then all of the stuff you're still working on, all of that stuff is recirculating until it's ready to let go, okay? So we're pushing into the world through our most positive aspect, and then all the other stuff is still in the cauldron to get burned and mutated and ultimately lead to our freedom. So take a nice big breath. If you can look up at that mudra if you're using it, and then sink into your chair pose. Can you imagine, like, what am I ready to put out into the world? What's formed? And what am I still needing to work on? And for me, there's so much. So now we're gonna turn this into a squat. So I gotta go a little wider with the legs. So we're gonna take our chair all the way down. And now that I'm down, I can decide, do I want one block? Maybe not. Okay. Let's get in here and see how it goes. Now we're gonna sit down on the floor, which is why I'm kind of debating. But I think I'm gonna do it this way. So I'm gonna take my mat so it's not so sticky and fold it. And then I'm gonna just put one leg on the ground and sit myself down. But if you can go straight out of your squat, just do that, it's probably easier. Oh. All right, yogis. So we're gonna bring the feet together. So we're still in this kind of squat shape. And I'm leaning forward and getting my sit bones out from under me. So as I kind of lean, I rock it a little bit more. Now my pelvis is genetically engineered, for whatever reason, to come all the way around and mostly put itself down right in the center of this whole shape. But some of you will have a pelvis that's engineered more to go towards the back. And if that's the case, then for you, instead of this rocking motion that I'm doing, your motion might be exploring how far in or out your feet should go so that you can create the lift through the upper body. And you might want to sit up on the edge of a blanket because it will help. So we're going to take ourselves into whatever version of this pose is appropriate. So for some of us, the appropriate thing might be to elevate, lengthen, keep the back of the neck long so we're not jacking the head back too much, but create that length in the spine and pause, and then work the legs by trying to, essentially we're just rolling the thighs towards the floor, okay? So that's a way to work this pose. If my pelvis happens to come forward a little bit more and I can hold onto the feet, then I can hold the feet for a little bit of resistance and then pulling the feet towards the center line and taking my breastbone up, but without jacking my head back. I Again, lengthen through the spine, and then press the thighs towards the floor. So we're doing this in a really active yang fashion, okay? Now we're gonna do 2 more breaths. Now, if you happen to be a little bit more, a little bit bigger range of motion around your pelvis and you want to put your face all the way down into your feet, I'm not gonna stop you. But don't do that because you think that's the goal. It's not the goal. Just some people can do that with their body. It's just what it is. Some people have blue eyes, some people have brown eyes. It's the way it is. We're all a little different. All right, so we're gonna take a big breath. And then we're gonna come all the way up. All right, now letting your legs go loose for a second, give them a little movement. And now you have a choice. So if you could really use a few minutes to rest in Shavasana, that is what I would suggest, right? Just let yourself just take a few moments to lie down on the ground and be quiet. If you'd be up for more of a kind of inverted posture, I'm gonna do a supported bridge pose. So I'm gonna do that using one block, right? And I'm gonna put this block underneath my hips, and I might turn it into a supported shoulder stand, depends on how it feels in my neck. If you have any neck issues, instead of putting the block under your hips, you can just lie down and put your legs straight up in the air, and that won't put the pressure on your neck in the same way. And if you've got a wall handy and you can do legs up the wall, I say go there. All right, so here's the first part. Roll down, okay? And then with some, with some power, I'm gonna get my feet in here. I'm gonna lift my hips up and slip the block in. This is better than sitting on the block and rolling down, because when you sit on the block, it goes under here. But where it needs to be is under here, okay? So I find the top rim of my pelvis, it's right there, and the top rim of my pelvis is just on top of the top edge of that block, just this side of it. So now my sacrum is being supported. So I can just do this, okay? And I'm using my arms for a little extra stability because it helps put the weight of my body into my arms instead of into my neck. Or I could do this, straighten out both legs, and that's a really nice hip flexor stretch. Or I can do this and do a little supported shoulder stand. Now, I don't do a lot of the more extreme versions of inversions on the YouTube or on the online, because not all of us are really appropriate. It's not appropriate for everybody. And you should go check out with a doctor and other people to see if even having your legs up is appropriate for you. These kinds of inversions where the body is more supported are generally a little less dangerous. That doesn't mean they're entirely without danger. So make sure that you check in with your particular people if you're not sure. And if you ever feel anything that intuitively to you says, oh, probably shouldn't be doing this, I say listen to that instinct, because your body knows more than I do. All right, so I like a little bit of play where I might do one leg out straighter and one leg up, because again that kind of gives me a little bit more of that hip flexor stretch. And what's nice about an inversion is it helps me kind of get my lymphatic system moving. If I've missed any part of that while we were doing the flow, I can get that kind of moving and flowing. Oh, and often what's really interesting is even a mild inversion, like just having your hips up a little bit or just putting your legs up in the air, can help to lower the amount of stress hormone is in the bloodstream. I think that's kind of fascinating. I don't know what the mechanism is, but for a lot of people it seems to be true. Now I'm going to come down from this. I've got my feet on the ground and I waited, okay? So that's the first step. Feet down, wait. Then I'm going to lift my hips up and slip the block out from under me, and then I'm going to roll down really slow. So I just have a chance to do a little bit of extra core work, and then I'm going to give myself a little massage by windshield wipering my legs back and forth and rocking on my pelvis right where that block was. Oh, it feels good, yogis. And so the space that you land in is just to pause here and breathe for a few moments, and then when you're ready to go back to work or go back to lunch or go get lunch, now you're ready, right? Hopefully feeling a little bit refreshed from your practice today. Now I'm going to sit up and more formally wish you a good rest of your day. But let's doing a big breath together. Let's take a nice big inhale and a big deep sigh. Enjoy the rest of your day, yogis. Namaste.